Halloween is the time for everything frightening yet still fun. Besides the classic characters that are monsters, undead, or malevolently magical, there is another symbol of the holiday: pumpkins, or more specifically, jack-o'-lanterns. Yes, nothing says scary like a face carved into a pumpkin that is traditionally smiling. Come to think of it, why is it one of the main symbols of Halloween? I understand pumpkins represent autumn, but the face usually looks so friendly. It's smiling.
Now, I don't know what you're talking about there, MrTopTenList. Jack-o'-lanterns are scary. For sure, their faces are a little goofy, but have you looked into their eyes? They're dead inside.
I see what you're getting at there, NegetiveX. Plus, you can easily carve a significantly less happy face or something that isn't even a face that just makes people feel like they underachieved with the jack-o'-lantern that they carved. So why don't we cover the characters based off pumpkins, a symbol of Halloween?
Bam! This is how the magic happens.
So these will be characters that are pumpkin themed. Something about their persona is pumpkin, whether they actually be pumpkins or just use pumpkins in their everyday lives. So here are the top 10 spooky scary pumpkin themed characters.
Number 10 is the Hobgoblin. Now I know what you're thinking. He's not a pumpkin, and you would be correct. However, he kind of throws pumpkin-shaped bombs, which is good enough for this list.
He's got a few other pumpkin-themed pieces of his attire, but really the pumpkin bombs are what he's known for. I mean, he didn't have to put jack-o'-lantern faces on them, so it shows he's really pumped for Halloween all year round. We could have also chosen the Green Goblin, but everybody would choose the Green Goblin when thinking of pumpkin-themed Spider-Man villains. Well, actually no, they'd probably think of the Spider-Man villain Jack-o'-lantern. That's right, there's actually a character that is completely based off a jack-o'-lantern. We could have in fact chosen him. He's worked with the Hobgoblin before, and he does the exact same thing, throwing pumpkin bombs, and his helmet is actually a pumpkin, or more, a jack-o'-lantern. That being said, his name is not that creative. It's just what he is, kind of. There's some times where he's magic, but for the most part he's just a guy in a suit. In fact, his name isn't even Jack, so it's not even a funny pun. His real name was Jason Macendale in the first iteration.
His Jason Lantern doesn't really have a nice ring to it.
O-Lantern.
Jason O-Lantern? Even worse.
Number 9. Pumpkaboo and its evolution Gourgeist from Pokemon. It is said that these are little ghosts that inhabit the bodies of pumpkins, making them ghost and grass types. One of the notable things that Pumpkaboo does is guide spirits back to wherever they're supposed to go. When it evolves into Gourgeist, it somehow gets a face on its stomach that is reminiscent of a jack-o'-lantern. Crazy coincidence, huh? It's not like that's the first time that's happened in the Pokemon world.
Now this is a very educational Pokemon, because the one that looks like a pumpkin is called Pumpkaboo, and the one that is called Gordo looks like a gourd.
It's called Gourgeist.
Close enough.
Well, the Pokemon franchise has always been educational. Why do you think Water-type Pokemon are weak to electric attacks? Or Ghost-type Pokemon are weak to Dark-type attacks?
That doesn't make any sense. Why would ghosts be weak to dark? They come out in the dark. Don't you think they'd be weak to something else? I don't know, like a fairy type or something?
Sorry to crush your dreams, but, yeah, that does exist.
Number 8 is Pumpkinhead, a character from a 80s or 90s horror movie. One of those old ones. Now I know what you're thinking, but NegetiveX, he doesn't actually have a pumpkin for a head. In fact, it's not very clear why he's named Pumpkinhead. Well, that is true, but he still counts, because his name is Pumpkin.
But NegetiveX, he doesn't have a pumpkin for a head, nor is anything about him pumpkin-themed.
I'm pretty sure I covered that in my earlier section.
Pumpkinhead is a demon of vengeance, although it really just seems like he will kill anything in his path. In the first movie, a guy who wanted revenge on these teenagers for accidentally killing his son and then fleeing the scene, got a witch to summon Pumpkinhead and he basically killed them all. The second movie involved Pumpkinhead's kid, and then it was really convoluted, like all slasher films when they go past the sequel. Pumpkinhead is a forgotten slasher villain mainly because he came out towards the end of the whole slasher movie trend in 1988. Poor guy. Number 7. The Hungry Pumpkin from Pumpkinland. This is a children's game on the internet that gained notoriety at some point for how counterintuitive one of the lessons was. This game is supposed to teach children about food, drinks, and condiments by having this pumpkin character request these items at your diner. The problem is, instead of acting as a standard patron at your eating establishment, he acts like a rude customer that will be your buddy if you do everything right, as he impolitely requests for food, but oh, you better not get anything wrong.
Give me the french fries.
I mean, not to mention, when you give him something he doesn't like, he just kind of slaps it to the ground and says, "No, I don't want that." For example, if you give him a glass of water before his meal, as is customary in this country, he just slaps it to the ground. To the ground! God.
You may notice his poor table manners where he will pick up anything you put in front of him that he likes and just eat it in a few bites. No utensils, and it doesn't matter if it's food or not. Like, he will take the glass of juice and just eat it in a few bites. Shards of glass. He's chewing on shards of glass, but no, it's fine.
He also teaches very improper diet. For example, he just eats a stick of butter. Nothing else, just butter.
And finally, when he's done with his meal, he'll just get up and leave. I would normally note that he doesn't tip, but he doesn't even pay the regular bill. And that's regardless of how well or how poorly you do. If you get the highest score, he'll say, "That was fantastic, I'll be back in 10 minutes. And if you get the lowest score, he'll say, "That was terrible, I'm never coming back here again."
That was terrible. I'm never coming back here.
Clearly the right choice is to give him nothing he wants, because at least then you'll never have to see him again.
No, I don't want that.
He brings nothing but destruction. Him coming in this diner was a net loss. He ate our salt shaker, and we have to clean up all this food he flung against the wall.
I guess we shouldn't have been expecting much from this game. I mean, look at the title. It's not The Hungry Pumpkin, it's The Hungry Pumpkin. Pimkin. That's not how you spell pumpkin. Yeah.
Did you just misspell the misspelling?
It doesn't matter. It's just spelled wrong. Doesn't matter how wrong. What number are we on again?
6.
Number 6 is Pumpking, King of the Goblins.
Ghosts.
From Yu-Gi-Oh! The Last Airbender.
That's not right.
From Yu-Gi-Oh! Master of the Cards.
You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? Anyway, this is a zombie pumpkin who really has no backstory since he is just a Yu-Gi-Oh card without any trivia on his personality. In the actual rules of the game, the card is pretty bad, but if you go by the first season of the anime when it's used, it's pretty cool since that's when the show just kind of made up card properties and effects to fit the conflict of the plot. Here, good old Pumpking was used in the episode with the zombie kid who used spooky zombie monsters. When Zombie Kid summoned Pumpking, it planted its roots into the other zombies on his side of the field, making their attack points go up and cosmetically making them giant zombies. The writers called this ectoplasmic fortification, and despite how fake that sounds, by definition, the term is not wrong, but it's still a bunch of nonsense. It made the card sound so overpowered, but then you get it in real life and you're like, what's this? The show lied to me. You know, there's also apparently one piece of backstory we can mention. Many years later at some point, they released another partial joke card called Pump Princess, Princess of the Ghosts, implying the Pumpking has a daughter.
Wait, what? That doesn't make any sense. He's a pumpkin. He's literally like a nutrient body around the seeds.
I don't think this is worth analyzing, but if I had to guess, he used to just be a normal living pumpkin, and then someone carved him open, took out the seeds, he was revived as a zombie, and then they planted the seeds, and then his daughter was born, but it's Yu-Gi-Oh! You don't need backstories for each card. Number 5. The little pumpkin guys from Castlevania Curse of Darkness, and also Castlevania Lament of Innocence. These guys are basically joke characters. In Curse of Darkness, they can help out the main character, but they're not all that useful. They die in a few hits and are mainly there to increase your luck, which is not all that helpful when you can employ any other support character that improves statistics you can actually control. That being said, you cannot dislike these guys. They are like the team mascot. Since Castlevania deals with some Halloween-esque themes, the pumpkins sort of embody all that. All they want to do is just trick or treat and dress up. Why should we criticize their interests? One of them is even a chef. Think about it, when he's the chef, he can make a delicious dish out of himself if he so desires. They are humble enough to just go by the name Pumpkin rather than Jack-o'-lantern. Probably that Marvel character hogging all the copyright material.
Those poor little guys got sued once and they never want to get sued again. They're just so scared. Number 4 is Blair from Soul Eater. Now, this is a witch, well, like a monster cat who's mistaken for a witch commonly, that has a variety of pumpkin-themed attacks. For example, she can rain pumpkins down on you. She also has an attack known as the Smashing Pumpkin, not to be confused with the band The Smashing Pumpkins. Her attack makes an explosion that looks like a pumpkin instead of playing music. I know it gets a little confusing sometimes.
A few notes propel her this high up on the list. Not only are these pumpkins, but usually they are jack-o'-lanterns, so that's super Halloween themed. Not to mention she also sings about pumpkins in her spare time, and she lives in a house shaped like a pumpkin, so there's some good bonus points.
Gotta respect someone who takes it to that extreme. Everything about her is pumpkin. That she eats or drinks her pumpkin spice lattes and eats pumpkin seeds and... God, there's not a lot of stuff relating to pumpkins out there, is it? Is there?
Well, what about pumpkin pie, pumpkin beer, pumpkin bagels, pumpkin pumpkins, pumpkin muffins?
Wow, clearly I have not been living if there's all these pumpkin products I am unaware of.
Number 3, Lord Pumpkin. He's actually from Malibu Comics, so he's rather unknown. He's basically a living pumpkin demon sort of guy. His body consists of twigs, straw, and some roots, so he's also a scarecrow. But his head does have a candle in it, so he's like a living jack-o'-lantern too.
So he's just an anthropomorphic pumpkin is what you're telling me.
Well, don't describe him in that manner, he's cooler than that. Let's see, well, he's basically immortal. See, the seeds in his mouth can actually be planted and create more of him, so when he dies, he's basically reborn, so technically, he's immortal.
So what's the ratio to that? Is it like one seed to one of him? What if he gets like 20 planted successfully? Would he create an army?
Okay, fine, maybe immortal wasn't the right term, but he is basically immortal. It's hard to kill him. His weaknesses are what you'd expect. Anything that kills pumpkins, or anything that would kill or more damage a scarecrow.
So, you're talking about fire and the passage of time. I'm not sure if you've ever seen a pumpkin after a few weeks being left out, but it gets pretty gross pretty quick.
You're a hard sell. Well, the candle in his mouth, it helps him breathe fire. That has to be an advantage somewhere.
Except if he misaims it, he'll light himself on fire since he's, again, made out of straw and roots.
Alright, fine. Maybe he's not that cool.
Number 2 is The Great Pumpkin from Charlie Brown. Now, this is an American classic. Everyone waits every year to see this cartoon. It has touched the lives of millions. And sure, it may just be a giant pumpkin without any powers of sorts, but there's some pretty cool theories about this guy. For example, some say he's an evil god.
Yeah, the problem with those theories is the world of the Peanuts is pretty realistic. Minus the fact that Snoopy is a dog that can walk on 2 legs and is about as smart as a human. And that one time Snoopy turned Charlie Brown invisible, but that's beside the point. The Great Pumpkin, although imaginary in the head of the character Linus, is almost like a symbol of Halloween. People gather around the TV to watch the special every year. And when you think about it, the fact that the Great Pumpkin is imaginary is kind of the point of Halloween. We use our imaginations to create costumes beyond our wildest dreams. And it's a pumpkin, and we all know pumpkins are a symbol of Halloween. For number 1, we have an icon of Halloween and horror in general. He always manages to stick his head in around this time of year. Number 1, the Headless Horseman. There have been numerous iterations of the Headless Horseman over time, but one constant is what he uses as a false head, his jack-o'-lantern. Usually he is a ghost or something like that, haunting some poor soul, scaring people with his lack of head on horseback. Of course, I don't know why he chose a pumpkin as his head when he could pick something maybe a little more intimidating. I feel he wants something scarier, like, I don't know, maybe a skull instead of a pumpkin with an angry face on it?
Well, keep in mind, this was way back in the day. He couldn't really get around that well. He was on horseback, and he couldn't cross a bridge without disappearing. So his head options were very limited. He could try to steal people's heads, which he would often do, but if they got away too quickly, it was too late for him. The pumpkin was probably the closest thing he could do, and probably lighter than a rock.
If the fact that he lacks a head doesn't scare you, he also swings around a sharp sword. Whether it's the more lighthearted Scooby-Doo interpretation, the darker Disney interpretation, or some different interpretation, he always has that weapon. And he also has the less conventional flaming jack-o'-lantern bombs, which he'll throw at you just because he wants to, or if it's a less violent interpretation that cannot use swords. When you think about it, the Headless Horseman and Halloween have two major themes in common: horror, and of course the jack-o'-lantern. The Headless Horseman uses the jack-o'-lantern for his false head and is a famous part of his image, and we always carve jack-o'-lanterns around Halloween to celebrate the time of year. Just like this excellent one I carved off screen.
That's a beautiful jack-o'-lantern. I've never seen one so beautifully detailed in my life. If only there was a way we could show everyone else, but I guess they'll just have to trust us.
So the Headless Horseman tops our top 10 pumpkin-themed characters for Halloween, or any other time of the year because this video is up for your viewing pleasure all 12 months of the year. Anyway, agree? Disagree? Let us know which pumpkin characters you think should have made the list that we missed. Thank you all for watching, happy Halloween, and we will see you in the next video.
Toodaloo!